I give you the nod because I like to pause the audio on the streaming so we don't have a double audio happen. So one moment, please. All right, good. We don't have to do it today. So that's the end of that. Got it. Okay, Kelsey. Thank you.
All right. Awesome. Hello, everyone. We have a full agenda today, so we're going to get going. We'll start with introductions. Oh, this is the Human Rights Commission meeting. We'll do popcorn style as usual. Share your name, your pronouns if you wish, if you have a role on the commission, and if you know what ward you live in. Yeah. My name is Kelsey Murray. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the vice chair of this commission. I live in Ward 4, and I'm going to pass to, let's stay virtual, Laura.
Hi, I'm Laura Fouts. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a member of the commission and a resident of Ward 3. I pass it to Lisa.
Was that me? Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm sorry. Lisa Novak. I am a member of the commission. I live in Ward 3, and I use the pronoun she, her. And I will pass to Hope Strayer.
Hi, I'm Hope Strayer. I am a member of the commission. My pronouns are she, her, and I live in Ward 4. I will pass to Kate.
Hi, thank you. My name is Kate. I'm now a member of the commission as well. I believe I live in Ward 1, which is the Grant District of Salem. And my pronouns are also she, her. I will pass to someone in the room, which is Joaquin. Thank you.
All righty. Thank you. Good evening, everybody. My name is Joaquin, and I am also a member of this commission, and I'm a resident of Ward 8. Why not? Let's stay present. Kathy, go ahead.
I'm Kathy Ostrand-Ponton. I'm a member of the Human Rights Commission. I live in South Salem. My pronouns are she, her. Let's keep going on table.
Sure. My name is Robert Dowd. I am with the Salem Police Department. I am currently the acting in capacity lieutenant over the community engagement section.
And I am Debbie Aguilar, and I am recently not officially promoted quite yet, but I am acting in capacity deputy chief of the investigations division, and still until next meeting, the liaison between the Human Rights Commission and the Salem Police Departments. And we have a little bit of news later, but we'll save that. And I suppose I should pass it on. How about Dr. Brown?
Greetings, everyone, and I'm going to go ahead and say this. Congratulations, Deputy Chief Aguilar, because I just believe that it's going to happen. It's good to be here. I'm in Ward 5 and just here to listen and how I can be of support to the community.
Awesome. We'll go to Elena next, or Alana next.
Hey there, I'm Ilana Lynn. I use they, them pronouns. And sorry, I'm off camera today. I'm actually still at the Capitol participating in session. And I'll pass it to Marley.
Hello, my name is Marley Baker. My pronouns are they, them. I'm an education outreach specialist for the Fair Housing Council of Oregon, and my regions include the Portland metro area and the city of Salem.
And then I think the last person is Gretchen.
I think so too. Hey, Gretchen Bennett, liaison to the commission. It's good to see everybody, and she, her pronouns. And I want to thank Kelsey for pitch hitting at the last minute. Hamadi was going to be here, our chair, and then had a last minute change. And so we're appreciating Kelsey jumping in.
Of course, always a pleasure. All right, moving on to public comment. Are there any public comments?
None has been received, but Kelsey, you might remember from email, it might make sense, depending on Marlene and Joaquin, to take the conversation with Fair Housing Council of Oregon near the top. We thought maybe we could adjust that so that we don't have to delay that till later in the agenda.
We want to respect the
Absolutely.
time of our guests. I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's so I'll yield the floor over to Marley and Joaquin.
Would you like to tee it?
Yeah, I'll tee you up, Marley. But basically, Marley is no stranger to this commission. They've been here now 2 or 3 or 4 times. And as they just mentioned, work with FHCO, and they reached out some time ago to talk about our capacity, interest, or availability in partnering. Because April is, remind me of the month, Marley, what is?
Fair Housing Month.
Oh, I could have guessed that. And looking to do maybe a public event or some form or variety of public engagement in partnership with the commission, or at least supporting FHCO's work. And we talked about it at some length at the Community Engagement Task Force meeting, which for those who don't know, I chair last month. I think everything's last month now because it's early February, but and we thought it was wonderful. Wonderful idea. There was some conversation around whether it was in conflict with or redundant to Robert Marshall's work around a homelessness summit of some flavor and variety, and we thought no, that this was a lot more expansive and therefore not redundant. And so we invited you, Marley, here today to talk to us about it. The floor is yours.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. I have such respect for the work that this commission does, which is why I first thought of you when thinking of ways to conduct outreach in Salem for Fair Housing Month. For those of you who may not be familiar with fair housing are the laws that protect us from unequal or discriminatory treatment in all forms of housing processes and transactions. Fair Housing Month is celebrated in April to celebrate when the Fair Housing Act was passed back in 1968, following the Civil Rights Movement, and kind of a part of that legislative package. So my idea for Fair Housing Month is to stimulate something similar to the Human Rights Campaign Day event that happened a couple months ago, where there was an open forum and folks were invited to come and speak on human rights in Salem. But I would love to emulate that with more of a focus on housing discrimination. So the population that would be invited to attend would be the general public. We could do strategic invitations to community groups, organizations, religious groups, advocates who may be working with different populations and demographics across the city, inviting them to bring maybe clients or people they work with, or to come as representatives of their community. And the purpose of this event would be to assess gaps in fair housing enforcement and housing access among the protected classes in the city of Salem. And it would also be a great opportunity to share resources and kind of build community connections. So some of the hosts of this event would, of course, include the Fair Housing Council. I would be in attendance along with our legal director, Matt. He would be there to answer questions and also to make sure that this information is going directly to the top of our enforcement team. This information, listening to community members share about housing discrimination that they've experienced, will help us determine how we want to target our future testing and our future investigations around housing discrimination at a local and jurisdictional level. I'm also interested in inviting legal aid to come. So that way they're also there listening to people's experiences. And I would hope that this event would be sometime in early to mid-April. But essentially the premise is inviting community members to come speak on discrimination that they've experienced in housing. I think it would be a great way to learn about what are some outreach that we need to be better in, what are populations who need to hear this, and what specific parts of fair housing need to be more heavily enforced.
Thank you, Marley. I'll open up the floor for any reactions to what they just shared. But including enthusiastic support of the idea.
We always love enthusiastic support.
I think this is a great idea. I think I would love for the commission to back it and to be involved and to be a part. So I guess like if that is what we decide to do, what would be the next steps for us to support this?
Absolutely. I think I would be able to handle a lot of the logistics of organizing where it would be held. Of course, partnering with HRC to make sure that someone from the team could be able to be a part of this and listen in. I would also appreciate support in advertising and getting the word out on social media, some of that strategic outreach work. That would be really, really helpful, I think, in making sure that we have a well-rounded outcome of folks who are able to attend.
Awesome.
And I think Lisa unmuted.
Oh, good.
No, I think this is great, and I think it's great for the HRC to be involved. Where would the event be held? Did I miss that?
You have not
Is
missed
there a
it.
location?
We've worked with some free public spaces before, including the Salem Public Library. I think we could also reserve a space at the Salem 50+ Center pretty easily. So those are some ideas of local spaces that we've held events in before.
And did you set a date? I know we discussed April, but do you have an exact date yet, or you're still working that out?
Still working it out. I think April 10th could be a great starting date. Probably in the evening and the afternoon, so that folks are able to attend after work.
Okay.
With that, I always think that food is a great way to bring people in. If we're able to provide possible dinner or snacks, that would be something that financially the HRC might be able to support with.
Well, I love your idea, and it's great for the HRC to be involved. So yeah, good on you. Thanks for doing this. Yeah, of
Thank you, Lisa.
course.
You want to mention that, or do you want me to?
I was just looking at the calendar. April 10th is the night that the HRC would normally hold our meeting. And so I'm just wondering if that would be a potential conflict with our meeting schedule.
Oh, yeah. We could absolutely reschedule it to maybe April 8th.
Well, Marley, before, you have ownership of this event. If that is the date that works for you and your organization, then if we can move this for Valentine's Day, we can move it for your event.
All right.
I think it's a better cause anyways.
Thank
Between
you.
between us and the world. Gretchen, I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
Apropos of this. I think I know the answer to this, but could the city broadcast this and kind of share it out onto there?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, we could absolutely be a partner in the sharing of information. I could be helpful, Marley, with scheduling a room. The only thing I would be worried about that's been mentioned is the provision of dinner or food. We don't actually have a budget at the HRC specifically. We just tap the city's tight general fund. So I don't think that would be realistic. At the Salem Speaks Up event, a partner organization and their volunteers provided food is how that was accomplished. So we might be able to score other partners, or people maybe here volunteer to everybody come, we have to follow the rules about food handling, but we could maybe come up with something like that, but I don't have like a dinner budget or anything like that.
Partner kind of the, dare I say, appetite to do it again?
Maybe.
Thank you. One person.
American Association of AAUW, University Women.
Oh, you're sure.
That was the team, and I could reach out if folks would be interested in having me explore that.
That sounds great. I would love to get as many community partners invested in attending as possible.
That might be a connection that we can make.
Yeah.
In terms of our capacity and timeline, Marley, just for your own edification, we have, I don't know, 3 at most 4 meetings between now and then. Meaning 2 commission meetings and then, or I guess maybe even only one commission meeting, but
March.
the Community Engagement Task Force, which meets separately on a different day at a different time, and it's a subsect of this group, meets in addition to that, and that would be a good venue if details need to be ironed out to do that. And we meet at least twice before then. And so in terms of continuing the conversation in a more granular level, or if anything comes up, those would be opportunities to do that as well.
Absolutely. I think that sounds great. Is there a contact who would be best for me to communicate details with regarding potential planning and outreach?
I volunteer myself, someone who's involved with the Community Engagement Task Force, but also Gretchen in all things should always be part of those conversations. So.
Great, thank you.
I can email the three of us to coordinate. Oh, sorry.
That's okay. I can also help Joaquin.
Thank you, Kate.
I'll email the four of us to connect if that sounds good. That's awesome.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Any other questions or comments or concerns for Marley or the event? Alrighty, well, happy to take this conversation offline or follow up again publicly later, but thank you, Marley, very much. You're free to stick around if you wish, but you don't have to if you don't want to.
Thank you, everyone. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Kelsey, that's it for that, I think. So
awesome.
Back to you.
Looking forward to it. It sounds like this is something that we want to be a part of.
Oh, I guess, yeah. Should we vote on that before Marley goes?
Yeah. All those in favor of supporting, joining, being a part of the Fair Housing Summit. I don't know what to call it. Say aye or thumbs up or yay.
Aye.
Beautiful. All those opposed? All right. Great. Seeing none. Hey, we did it. Yay.
I spoke too soon, Marley. My apologies.
No worries. Name to be determined as
All right.
well. Thank you all.
Mystery. I like it. Awesome. Well, yay. Okay, so moving on. Is there a motion to approve the agenda and the minutes from last month's meeting?
So moved.
Awesome. It's been moved. Lisa, is that a second?
Well, second.
Beautiful. Any opposed? Nice. All right. Moving to the bias crime update.
Thank you. Yes. So we had 2 bias incidents reported to us this last month. Both of them occurred in Northeast Salem. The first occurred on January 22nd and was a graffiti incident. A school up in that area found several swastikas were spray painted on the side of the school. No suspect, but a report was taken to document that incident. And then the second one happened again, also in Northeast Salem. It happened on January 28th. And this one, a Hispanic officer was on duty doing their job, responded to a call of an individual who was probably suffering from a mental health crisis. The individual was yelling and screaming, damaging property. So the officer ultimately had to take the person into custody. After the officer took the person into custody and they were in the back of the patrol car, the person started yelling some fairly severe racial slurs and other insults at this Hispanic officer. And so the officer documented the incident in a bias incident report. And so that was also included in this month's information. So I don't know if there are any questions about those 2 incidents. And I did reach out to, because I already.
She knows.
No, you have a question on that. I preemptively reached out to Oregon DOJ to see if she has that information yet. I actually haven't heard back from her, so I think maybe she's, I don't know.
Well, I appreciate that.
But I did, because I knew you were going to ask. So yes, and I'll prep him to that. So anyway, so if there are no questions, the announcement is. So several months ago in July, I tested for deputy chief. We had several positions open. I wasn't successful in that process, but I did successfully pass. So my name was on the list. We filled those 2 positions, but one of our other deputy chiefs now has decided to retire. So there will be a vacancy in the beginning of March at the rank of deputy chief. So since I already successfully passed the process, the chief has decided to promote me to deputy chief in March. So what that means is that leaves a vacancy in my position. It takes a lot of work to put on a promotional process. So we don't have so we're just going to run with a vacancy in the lieutenant position for a little bit, and probably until the summertime, until we can run a process and permanently fill my position. So until then, Sergeant Dowd, now we call it acting capacity AIC, but he's technically a lieutenant now. Lieutenant Dowd is going to be filling in for me, and it actually works out really well. He was the sergeant over the community action unit. So he's in my section already and has a lot of knowledge about the work that we're doing. So he will now not represent me, but I guess he will be the liaison between the police department and the Human Rights Commission starting next month until they permanently fill my position. And then whoever that is, most likely will then become the permanent representative or liaison. So you'll be in wonderful hands with Lieutenant Dowd until we find somebody else. So unless eventually I think he's going to promote to lieutenant, but we'll see if he does it this time or not. But anyway, so I've been the liaison since I think 2017. So it's been a long time. Been through a lot of changes, was the liaison when we went through COVID, when we went through George Floyd and all of that going on, and then now. So it has been an honor. I've really enjoyed working with everyone now and prior commissioners. It's just been something I've really taken a lot of pride in this work, and I really hold a lot of respect for all of you that dedicate your time. You're not paid for this. You dedicate your time to doing this work. So I want to thank you all for all the work that you do and letting me be a part of it. And I know that Lieutenant Dowd feels equally. So anyway, but I probably actually might be back next month because I do have the year-end report. And so it isn't quite fair to have him talk about something that he didn't have any part in creating. So I'm hoping to have that to you all by next month. And so I might be here as a guest speaker. So that was all I had.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Congratulations. We will so miss you. But we're excited to welcome Lieutenant Dowd.
Thank you. I look forward to working with everybody.
Awesome. Any questions or comments about the bias crime update? All right. Okay. Complaints of discrimination. Gretchen.
Thank you. I had one incident called into me, and I regret I wasn't able to put my hands on some notes, and this happened a bit ago, but what I was able to recall from my tally that I do is that somebody reported being in a place of public accommodation and receiving comments from another person who was also there that was disparaging about their national origin, and just felt uncomfortable with that. We weren't sure who the person was or how to find that person, but was really grateful that they let us know of the experience. Yeah.
Okay. Any questions or comments? All right. Conference with other city HRCs. Is there anything, did Hamadi send anyone anything?
No,
Okay.
I think that's a pause to next month.
All right. Sanctuary City. Joaquin, is this you?
Usually is. No, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead if you
No,
want.
no, go ahead.
We always have this comedy going on over here. If you were ready, you go for it.
Go ahead.
Okay. So a reminder that this objective on Sanctuary City came about from the belonging survey. The group that reported the least comfort with reporting hate or bias is people in our Indigenous migrant communities. And the theory that the commission's been thinking about is whether it relates to a person's legal status. And so to date, what we've done is we heard from now acting DC Aguilar on helping us understand sanctuary policy, both at the city level and then at the state level. And then we checked in and learned what Eugene is doing. And my understanding of where we want to go next with this conversation is we'd like to invite people to talk with us about the experiences that they're hearing from people that they work with. And last time we were interested in talking to entities such as maybe the Oregon Law Center or CAPACES, PCUN, and maybe former legislator Teresa Leon. However, you had some early outreach, Joaquin, that suggested people might want us to crystallize a little bit or focus our questions or our areas of interest about what we were asking. And so I thought I'd tee that up for the group's conversation is would we be inviting people to come and speak to share if they're aware of times when people didn't access opportunities to report concerns because of their legal status, or just if they're aware of people having something happen to them and they didn't report, and what were those circumstances? And that might have been a little unwieldy. So just again, to back up, the belonging survey, we were zeroing in on when people aren't comfortable reporting hate or bias. And our objective was, how do we make sure people can report? How do we remove barriers so people are comfortable? And so interested in zeroing in with these populations to hear, like if I work at CAPACES, for example, am I encountering conversations where people are having incidents happen to them or crimes happen to them, but they're not coming forward, and why? So I'm wondering, is that the question? Is that the purpose of the invitation, or what do you all want to learn or understand from these potential speakers? And with that, I will turn to you if that's okay, because I want to hear if that matches your understanding. I think you did some early checking with PCUN or CAPACES.
Well, yeah, just in all transparency, I work at CAPACES.
Yeah.
So I'd be one of those people. And basically what Gretchen is referencing is, I talked to RED and some of our leadership, which I guess I also am leadership. And essentially the feedback was, well, what do y'all want us to talk about? And the answer was, we don't really know. I mean, so that was the feedback that we got. And the only thing I'll add to your robust and accurate report, Gretchen, is that another thing we kind of left off was the question about whether, in light of the deputy chief's report, that is the title, yes?
Yes, and you're correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Whether, changes or recommendations to city council in terms of changing the law, as in, similar to Chapter 97 changes that we recommended, if that was even the course of action we wanted to take or not, or if it was something akin to educational outreach, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That was also an outstanding question in light of, again, the information that the deputy chief shared. I'll be more specific, given the recency of changes to state law and kind of the robustness of it, and in light of what Eugene's Human Rights Commission shared with respect to changes to information and kind of the unforeseen deleterious impacts that had in terms of their capacity to actually track crimes and information that may kind of disempowered them from doing their job in ways that they hadn't anticipated. So that was also kind of out there.
So I might add that it would be helpful to us that it kind of sounds like you're helping interpret this belonging survey. So maybe there's a population that doesn't feel comfortable reporting a crime. So what could the HRC recommend that we do to help break down those barriers? So maybe during those conversations, they say, well, we would be more comfortable if we had maybe a single point of contact for particular incidents or something like that, or maybe some kind of recommendation that we could take back and go, okay, here's something we can definitely do to help break down that barrier, because the belonging survey is something that we look at, but then we lack the capacity of, like, what do we do with it? How do we overcome it? So that would be helpful to us, and that might be an action that.
So that's exactly right. So I mean, basically, whether it's community education, whether it's recommendations to city council, whether it's working with SPD to change practices or kind of put in processes there that aren't already in place. These are the sorts of things that are on the table, and I think you just put language to that idea very well, and so. What that would look like, I don't have an answer for, that'd be something that would be ahead of us, but those are the sorts of things that we're kind of chewing on now. Now that we've kind of gone through some of this learning process.
If I could jump into
Please.
two additional places that might have received recommendations is us, I mean, the Human Rights Commission, how can, we're positioned to receive complaints, so how can we be more welcoming?
You know,
And then also the Oregon Department of Justice, the bias hotline, is there anything about that process that we could suggest to the state that could be helpful too? I'm just thinking
Yeah.
about the entry points,
this is my own ignorance, but does the DOJ hotline track status or anywhere or not? In
So
other
it's
words,
like,
would they know if they were, no,
I don't think so.
I don't think so. Which is fine. and that
Yeah,
makes
yeah.
sense,
Right.
but that would help establish a baseline in terms of understanding how many of these people in the community
Sure.
are reaching out to them or not, but
Yeah, I don't even know if they could.
Yeah.
I don't think they
Wait,
can.
because of the, yeah, I don't think legally they could.
So I don't know if we think that's the gist of what I just wanted to tee up the potential guest speakers accurately. So I wondered if this is kind of what you want to hear, would those be the questions, kind of what we've just done? Or are there other things we're wondering about? I want, like you brought up victim privacy. I checked in briefly with some folks who work with our legislative agenda, for example, and that could be another question is, have you ever seen victim privacy be a barrier to reporting? For example, concern of loss of privacy by sharing information that's potentially really personal in the public process. You might remember that from a couple months ago.
It might not also just be, fear of, like, I know in some states it's deportation, but it's also fear of losing your job, right? And in a lot of places it might be employers or just security in that way. So I don't know enough on the subject. I feel like that's why I'm not answering you. I don't know enough about it. I think it would probably be going back to the community and asking them for more information if we could in some way. But also, I think leaning into the nonprofits that you mentioned, like Joaquin, the one that you work with and work for, and asking them to, in a way, be influencers to advocate for trust between the community and organizations like Salem PD or, a Human Rights Council. I think if there's a fear in the community, then there will be distrust, right? So it's bridging that gap of how can we build trust and make people feel comfortable coming forward. Obviously, that's I think probably one of the main issues, but I personally don't feel like I could speak on that. So I think it's going back to the community if we could, or asking some of our nonprofit friends to be influencers in a way. Yeah.
Thank you. Marley, it's more informal here. You can just start talking if you'd like. No need to raise your hand.
Oh, great. Thank you. I was just thinking about this conversation last year with Cardinal Villages. There was some significant displacement of Latinx communities, farm workers who were living there. And even though we had from the Fair Housing Council of Oregon side evidence that there was possible discrimination happening, we really, really struggled to have any of the tenants come forward to make a case. And ultimately, that's sort of where our hands were tied in being able to move forward with any sort of litigation or advocacy. So it might be helpful to speak to the caseworkers who worked with those families who were displaced in understanding maybe what were some of the barriers stopping the families from making any sort of formal reports about this. And those caseworkers were working with Arches primarily, I think.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think both you and Kate have just highlighted what is basically the essential tension here, which is, the work that will have to be done is quite the heavy lift. I mean, if you try and you're trying to get folks to be more engaged and more empowered to interface with government entities by, you know, being a government entity or getting a nonprofit, even people they trust, that's to even start that conversation is such an uphill challenge. And so you know, if the onus is on the nonprofit sector, even if they have those connections and that trust, it's not a guarantee in any way that they will be able to facilitate those conversations, but doesn't mean it's not what the attempt. So I wonder maybe what, I'm not a lawyer, I don't know anything about anything. I wonder, you know, what whether from on the state level or the city level, and I guess maybe this is a little bit regressive, but in terms of backtracking, in terms of, you know, but what are our laws around housing or employment discrimination on the basis of status?
Chapter 97.
I'm saying because I know citizenship is, is it not a protected class?
Not expressly called out as such, but national origin.
Yeah.
But your status as a citizen is not listed in chapter 97.
So for example, this is totally a contrived hypothetical, but this is, again, it's a contrived, but if I were a tenant and I got kicked out, and the only reason I could tell that was the case was because I was undocumented, would there be any recourse for that? Guess that's my question.
I'm looking up to see if Marley unmutes. I've never had a case like that before.
Well, Marley kind of suggested that might have been happening at some level.
But based on national origin, based on race, based on ethnicity, all of those are clearly articulated, but a person's status as a citizen.
I'll give you a concrete
to that.
Please, Marley, go ahead.
I can speak to that. When we're investigating fair housing, we're focused on residents. We're not focused on citizenship. So every resident in the United States is protected under the Fair Housing Act from discrimination based off of national origin. And there are alternative documents that folks can provide and housing providers should accept that can establish identity that aren't regulated to an Oregon ID or a social security number. So if a housing provider is discriminating folks against that, if they are denying applicants who don't have social security, if they're denying applicants once they learn that maybe they aren't a citizen of the US, that would absolutely be discriminatory and cause for advocacy or litigation.
And that is in law.
That is in the law, yes. But a lot of folks don't know about that. A lot of housing providers assume they can discriminate based off of documentation. Folks who may be immigrants to the United States don't know that this is a protection that they have. So we actually really struggle with getting folks to feel safe and comfortable enough with us to report housing discrimination based off of national origin. It's never a matter of if someone has been discriminated against, it's a matter of when they've been discriminated against because of their national origin.
Yeah. I mean, not to get personal, but these are personal issues. You know, my family is a mixed status family. My father was undocumented for, you know, most of his life, and he crossed the border 6 times. And I say that to say that he was a migrant farm worker. And he did the Pacific Circuit from the asparagus farms in Southern California all the way up to, you know, the trees and tree orchards and apple orchards in Washington State. And his experience is, of course, one of dehumanization, but he often relates that he felt like another piece of equipment. Or it's kind of like he always uses the line of tractor in the field, he says. I say that to say that I think it's a double-edged sword because, you know, if I'm you know, given the boot and I lose my housing, I don't know what to do. But I would imagine that people providing housing feel very empowered to do that over and over and over again because they know that they don't know what to do. And so there's just this kind of vicious cycle of I don't want you here, so I don't have to have you here, and I can sleep at night knowing that you won't know what to do. And so I don't know how to interrupt that cycle, but Marley, you may have some insights there. I mean, that's not just housing, that's employment, that's my father, when he was a farm worker. I mean, there's a through line here for this community.
Absolutely. It's a really difficult cycle to interrupt. I went to the farm worker housing conference back last fall in Mount Hood. And one of the primary issues with housing discrimination and farm worker housing in particular, is that, when employers are providing the housing for their workers, that's technically a bully issue, not a fair housing issue. It's technically employment discrimination. So fair housing laws don't necessarily cross over into that realm. And there's also just several steps. Like there are farm workers who tell stories all the time of, like we're living in these terrible conditions, and then we learn that someone from Bully is going to come investigate, and they put us up in these really nice accommodations, and we're too scared to say anything because we don't want to lose our employment. We don't want to lose our jobs. And so I can connect you with some of the contacts that I made at that conference, who may be interested in providing more information to you. There's a really wonderful report that was written by OHCS on farm worker housing in particular. But in terms of breaking that cycle, in my opinion, which is not the Fair Housing Council of Oregon's opinion, I just think we need to be more aggressive in our litigation and holding housing providers accountable and creating an example stating that this is unacceptable. And you will be held accountable if you are treating your residents this way. So those are my thoughts, but I can, of course, Joaquin and Gretchen, send you some additional materials for your consideration.
Yeah, thank you. And I don't want to get too narrow on housing, though I think it's super relevant, and I would appreciate that. But I think the relevance is, it's emblematic of this vicious cycle, as we say, and how do we interrupt that? And that is very relevant to the kind of conversations we're having in terms of the kind of community feedback we're getting by way of our community belonging survey, which you'll hear a lot about come in springtime.
Mm-hmm.
But thank you, Marley, for that very much. And I will say, I mean, it's okay for things to be all misery and despair, but in the spirit of hope, things do change. My father, when he was a migrant farm worker, he'd share, it was essentially a metal shack with like 12 other men, with no running water or bathroom. And that was he would sleep on the floor, and that was his living. And so those days are that happens less and less, but that's not fast enough, because that was almost 50 years ago. So I digress.
Example.
So in terms of next things, or next steps, or whatever people say, what are people feeling? Should we digest these reports? Go ahead, Kate.
Makes me think that we should have interpreters at our Fair Housing Day. I think. So, yeah, and probably, I know interpreters can be expensive, but it's probably good to have a few options. I know there's also virtual interpretation these days, and then also ASL if possible, if we're going to be inclusive.
Absolutely. Kate, I'll love to connect with you more about scheduling and working with different contacts to provide that interpretation.
And Marley, just for your own personal context, Kate is a communications professional, so that might be helpful.
Wonderful. Even better.
I feel like if we move on, we're kind of leaving it open-ended, but yeah, what do we have any? Go ahead.
No, I wasn't gonna say anything. No.
Oh, then no.
Well, do you want me to proceed with reaching out to the example organizations that we discussed with the example questions that we identified? Perhaps with the added piece, Kate, to your point about we'd love to hear more from people themselves to ask for their advice on maybe how to do that. Maybe we could engage their advice and how to do more of that as well. Would that be the next step?
It could very well be. I think I'd also like us to digest and think more about Deputy Chief Aguilar's comments relevant to how to, related to SPD and
Yep.
how to make that easier and safer and more accessible for folks in the community, but it's kind of a whole other conversation, but I think we shouldn't lose that.
Oh, no, I guess I was thinking that was one of the questions.
Oh, good. Well, then there you go.
Yeah.
Lisa, I think you had something.
I thought actually Joaquin just said it, so it's all good. Thank
Oh.
you. Thank you, Bill.
I think this was mentioned briefly. I think it would be worthwhile looking at adding like citizenship status under Chapter 97. If that's something that we're interested in.
Yeah, that intrigued me too. That hadn't hit me before as a thought. I
Double check just to make sure. I
I
don't think it is, but
yeah, I don't think so either. I can take a first step in checking in with our attorney's office about if there's any initial reactions to that from a legal standpoint. That's how we began with the housing status ad. Those of you who are newer to us, a few years ago, the Human Rights Commission began to consider what would it be like to add housing status as one of the protected classes, and begins with a little bit of exploration legally, but then ultimately it led to a recommendation to City Council, who accepted that and asked the attorney's office to write up something that they could approve. So I'll begin that inquiry
And that was
to learn.
pioneering work, by the way. I mean, there are only a handful of cities in the country that have done that. And dare I say, it was also what maybe caught the attention of Marley. That's kind of where our relationship began, was when that change materialized.
Yeah.
My thoughts on your point, Kelsey, about citizenship are this. We want to do things with intention, and I would hate to do it just to do it, but also if it doesn't hurt, and if the city attorney is like, yeah, then let's pursue it, you know? So it's not injurious in any way. I mean, it would only be to people's benefits. In my thinking, potentially, unless it's something different.
Yeah.
All right, shoot.
Okay,
Any-
so Gretchen's gonna reach out to those folks. Okay. Is there anything else around this that we want to talk about before we move on? Okay, this is very exciting. Reporting hate and bias. This kind of goes into that. Examining structures and options. Gretchen, this is kind of overlapping with the intersectional task force.
I am starting to struggle. Like, I thought about that a little bit, like how some of these topics are so interconnected, but I can quickly remind you, in this category, we started to discuss what do other cities do to help welcome in reports of bias, crimes or incidents. And we had heard back from one city so far that didn't have anything different than we have. And I haven't heard back from the others, but I emailed. So in fairness, I need to pick up the phone and call down and see if I can't reach some people live and clarify. But so far, we haven't discovered any avenues for reporting that we don't already have here in San Juan. The only other thing in this category is, I know your task force, Kels, is working on it. For example, I know that this has also been coming up in the task force conversations, but that's really all I think we have here.
Okay, cool. More on that in a minute. Great. All right. Moving on to welcoming spaces.
You want me to give background on that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Reminder, this objective was about trying to seek solutions that would decrease acts of discrimination in places of public accommodation or public trust, as Joaquin put it so well. Places of public trust like parks, sidewalks, medical facilities, restaurants. I think my question here, I don't think we've really built this out very much yet. You know, I was wondering, is it about isolating what factors contribute to a lack of welcomingness? Is it about researching how we can decrease incidents of hate or bias? Is it about practical tools? Like we talked once about adding access tracks at large parks for accessibility for people with mobility disabilities to be able to access events? Is it about very practical things that communicate welcoming in a very tactile way? I think what we could use in this category is just trying to build out some practical or ideas to help shape direction in this section. But that's what this one was about.
You know, I hate to say it, but this almost sounds like something that we should revisit after you've done some outreach to the community. Which we were planning to do in a more formal way, which relates to our update later, but.
That's right. You all began to discuss how to do more outreach with the community, and so perhaps that happens and then this
We'll have
happens.
lessons learned from that we could then carry forward to that work. I mean, not to stop conversation, but that seems to be something that we can't act on yet.
Yeah.
Also, for context for the lieutenant, we do the annual community belonging survey, which is one of our main ways of hearing back from the community and giving it away. And one of the things we surveyed this year was where places that discrimination was happening most frequently. And this term emerged of like place of public trust. We heard a lot about hospitals and healthcare systems, parks, and streets of our communities and stuff, which are not surprising, but they were concerning. So they kind of guided some of our conversations since May, which is when the community survey happened. But that's what we mean by that.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. Great. Anything else about welcoming spaces?
Well, I'd like to welcome Linnell.
Oh my gosh, Linnell.
Good to see you.
I'm sorry, I'm way behind tonight because I had to go to Safe Sleep for a little while, but thank you all for the work you do, and I'll try to catch up from this point on.
Don't apologize. Your presence is always just such a great time.
Thank you all so much.
Okay, circle of belonging, next steps.
I can recap that one too for us. We had public comment really from kind of two related sources. One from Dr. Brown, who's here with us tonight, and another from Mr. Thank you. We said that better.
Tajagiri.
There you go. And that led to discussions. You might remember you talked about addressing persons' sense of safety, particularly people who are Black or African American, and wanting people to feel safe in our communities. Ideas that you all were sharing included engaging with or attending the upcoming community violence conversations that are going to be happening. I know there'll be a mayor's kickoff, for example, coming up soon. Another idea was to see what the next steps will be with the circle of belonging discussion. DC Aguilar let everybody know that back in November, and some of you might remember this because we were looking for if human rights commissioners wanted to attend, there was a gathering called Circle of Belonging, which aimed at some of these objectives. And this group was going to do some follow-up conversations. So I think what we observed is there's a couple of tables that the Human Rights Commission might want to participate in for this part of the discussion. So I think that's maybe here as a reminder of those opportunities. And Commissioner Strayer, I was thinking, as I hear about them, maybe I could feed them to you for the calendar so folks could see those and begin to choose to attend. That might be one action step.
That would be perfect. Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah. But I wasn't sure if there was anything else on, but Kelsey, that's what I had on that.
Okay, awesome. Anything else?
Well, two things, Kelsey, if I may. First, Dr. Brown, I'd like to invite you to share anything you know. I know we received comment from you, but if there's anything to share on this topic, please feel free to do that. We'd love to engage with you on that. And while go ahead, yeah.
Well, I appreciate the ask. Well, I think one of the things that I really want to do, and I haven't done it for a while, is schedule a meeting with the new Deputy Chief Aguilar, because I would love to, once you share your year report, I think I'll be able to connect some dots and then kind of engage a little bit deeper. And so rather than just talking off the top of my head, which I can do, but I would rather not do that. I would rather just look at her facts and the year report. So I think I'll just wait for that. Or Deputy Chief, I can always just email you and schedule a meeting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, we'll do. I'll send you an email right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. The second thing related to the director's comment was maybe considering reaching out. I haven't talked to him or asked him about it, but reaching out to the levy, mano a mano, to see if they would like to partner with us anyway or come talk to us about the rise of youth violence, especially in the Latino community, which I know is an issue that Director Chandragiri was talking about, but also that Levy has been championing around the community for some time now, long before even that report. So that might be something, a contact that we can reach out to.
For sure. I noticed the Salem Reporters been discussing a community forum, and I believe he was listed as one of the potential speakers, for example. Yeah, I think.
That's what I saw.
If I'm not mistaken.
Yes, he is. He's definitely on the panel.
And that's been rescheduled for next Thursday, I believe, the 15th.
Correct.
The
Next
16th.
Thursday.
Next Thursday? Yeah.
Yep. It's next Thursday at 6 o'clock at the Elsinore Theater.
Thank you. Well, then maybe we can wait to see how that goes, but Levy's a good guy.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Interested to hear. All right. Let's move on to task force and project updates. Community engagement task force. Joaquin.
Oh Lordy, what do we got, Reg? We got a whole lot.
I've actually got your draft notes here, but I know that's a lot of words.
You know what? I'm gonna take a risk and not read this actually.
Yeah,
But
of
thank
course.
you
You're welcome.
for it.
You're welcome.
Well, first of all, Marley is here, and that was at least some portion of our conversation last time, and so that has more or less been discussed. Other things to keep in mind is, well, first I'll do low-hanging fruit. First, we went to the Spanish Resource Fair yesterday.
Oh, yes.
And we will not tell the story right now, but we will tell the story later.
Oh, you can't, I don't care.
Oh,
If you want,
really?
yeah.
I don't want to embarrass you.
I will not feel embarrassed. I think.
Or us.
Yeah, no, it's me, and I will not, thank you for asking. I do not feel embarrassed from it.
Do we want to use public time?
Well, that's a good
That,
point.
I don't think we should do that. It's a long story. Basically, there were cognitive errors and we ended up. Anyways, conscripting someone from the public and we thought was a city staff member to do things for us that wasn't.
No.
Anyways, for like, anyways,
More than
more
once,
than
for
once.
like lengths of time.
For like lengths of time. Anyways,
So that was funny.
that was yesterday and other than that, it was a wildly successful event, fair to say.
Yeah,
Um,
well attended.
well
The
attended.
Spanish Resource Fair.
Yes, this was a Spanish language event and folks from the community. It was up at on Portland Road on the Center 50 Plus and that was all well and good. Have we told them about the professor visiting us yet?
No. Yes.
So Professor Mullen at Willamette University is an anthropologist. And she reached out to us, her and a student whose name I can't remember at the time, though it is important.
Chev.
Chev. Regarding a research proposal to study essentially, and maybe you'd probably be able to say this better than I can right now, but basically there's a European model of belonging that many European cities have adopted. And it may not even be exclusively European, but at least originated in Europe, which could either mean it's really great or really bad, you never know. But they wanted to see if there was any lessons learned for Salem, and see if there was a way to improve the way that we welcome new arrivals to our community, whether they're international or otherwise. And so they wanted our support as they kind of approach that research and find funding for it. And we extended it, and the mayor's office extended it, and we invited them to return if and when they had research findings that might be relevant or interesting to this commission. And that's as detailed as I can get about that in the absence of them having not done research. Anything to add on that?
I think that's great. The simple way to think about it might be that they pointed out that often we spend a lot of time preparing new arrivals. Like if you're a refugee or an immigrant, there's a lot of conversation on what do they need to know? And the basic premise of this is, in addition, not instead of, but in addition, what do we need to know? How can our systems be prepared to work in a culturally aware and competent way with new arrivals from other countries? So it's kind of an interesting premise.
Yeah.
Yeah,
An inversion almost.
yeah.
But we do. And so I don't know, it's unclear to me when and if and when they would have the results or.
I think it could be some time. They were seeking, they're about to go on a little bit of research. And so Mayor Hoy wrote a letter of support, and the next step would be the student is seeking ability to visit communities that have done this, and the professors doing the same. And that what they would do is try to learn and gather some tips. And they would also do some local needs assessment or situational awareness from Salem, and then come up with some ideas. And so, but I think that's easily through the summer,
Yeah,
if not into next year.
absolutely.
So,
And Professor Mullen has a long-standing relationship, it sounds like, with Salem for refugees, and so
Yeah.
there's already those connections there, so.
yeah.
Just thought folks would like to know. In terms of our conversations at the task force, we talked at some length about the dashboard
Mhm.
concept, and that is something I'd like to bring to the attention of the larger group. Namely, as we have 5 years worth of data from the Community Belonging Survey. We will, in short order, that's the other thing I talked about, but in short order, be going out into the community and, in person meeting with folks and engaging with community members, hearing from them their concerns and their insights, and rendering those insights hopefully actionable, and you can see that, start having a more meaningful impact. And we're doing all this good work, or I like to think we do good work. And we want to be able to telegraph that to the public and to pretty much demonstrate through visual data the work that we're doing for a couple of reasons. One is like the spirit of this is your city at work, basically. The other is, a lot of these, whether it's in person or in biased crime reports or in reports that Gretchen presents when people come into the office or contact her, whether it's us going out to the community, people are being vulnerable. They're coming to us for help and support and affirmation. And we want to be able to catalog that, but also communicate the things that we're doing in response to those things. And so being able to render all of this information, diverse as it is, kind of visually and transparently, we've considered potentially a priority for the commission. There are a few caveats and/or things to consider. Obviously, privacy and equity concerns when it comes to data visualization. For example, I said it then, I'll say it now. I personally do not have the appetite or interest in, say, for example, having a map of Salem, Kaiser, or Salem, and having where our hate or bias incidences or crimes happening. If for no other reason than because I don't want to contribute to any narratives that people may have about certain parts of Salem. And at any rate, all information is publicly accessible should someone want it. If they're hungry and interested enough, they will get the information. We don't have to help them with that. So, being intentional about the kind of values and themes that we are and narratives that we're communicating, and while also being true to the issues and challenges that we facilitate and encounter on a month-to-month basis, and have it be reflective of the work that we're doing. Very early stages of this, we had a long conversation that we actually ended up cutting off because we were way over time and getting going even longer. And so, I'm happy to I'm forgetting the English word for what I'm trying to say, so I'm just going to not say anything at all other than to say that field the questions that you may have now. But given how early we are in this process, I invite you to come to the Community Engagement Task Force and engage on this question there. We have reached out to some data folks the city has to see what even is possible on the city's end. So that there will be some labor and money involved in this, and so those questions are kind of outstanding. Kate had a lot of amazing insights from a community commerce perspective and her professional capacity. And so some people who were there.
Well,
Anything else?
one thing I might add is an appreciation to Kate. She turned around a document that was just attached to your update yesterday. She tried to piece together from all of our different documents some talking points that might help with those in-person engagements. And Kate, I don't mean to speak for you. I think you're open to feedback. If people see that, if they could let us know if that's helpful or not.
Yeah, definitely. And I think there was room for improvement. Like, and Linnell recommended adding examples of HRC accomplishments or the commission accomplishments from the past. You know, if somebody were to request if we're out in the community and somebody were to request, well, what do you do? What have you done? You know, we could speak to those. I included some that had already been established within the talking points previously, but if there are others that I missed since I'm new, like that's an area where we could, of course, add more. And I made it more conversational, which is what was my interpretation of the request. So that when we're in the community, it's less like, it's less formal and more conversational for us to be able to just speak to people. So yeah, of course, please give feedback if you have any, and I will make another round or two of edits. And then I think, Joaquin, when we were talking about the dashboard, we also were talking about maybe editing the form, the Human Rights Commission form, to add a few areas that we don't currently have. For example, if somebody were to report, I think right now we had established that people, it's not clear if somebody were to report, if they're reporting for themselves or somebody else, or if they're allowed to report for someone else. So you could include a field that says, I'm reporting on behalf of someone else. Like I'm a bystander and I'm witnessing something and I'm reporting on behalf of another person. So there were a couple of fields that Robert, I believe is his name.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. Robert wrote them down, I believe, or at least we have notes. Gretchen, I'm sure, has copious amounts of notes from the fields that we would like to add to those forms. And then we'll have better data as well.
Yes, thank you for that additional reminder. And thank you for your labor and work and effort and compiling those kind of conversation guidelines. Basically, where that brings us is, you know, we're going to try to work through and finalize some of this language. And unless I'm forgetting something, which is totally possible, if I didn't bring anything with me tonight because I forgot it, then the conversation will turn to, well, when do we do this? And when do we go out and how do we want to do that? And that's not what we're going to talk about right now tonight per se, but just to flag that for folks that, you know, once everything is finalized in terms of people feeling prepared and empowered to have those conversations with community members, once that's done, and I might add, once we have a more mature idea of what a dashboard might look like, and once these conversations, to Kate's point, also about the form and just generally I would say generally the web page and how folks interface with our work online. Once that conversation matures and we can be able to answer and engage folks on that as well, there's no reason at least I don't see one where we can't start going out into the community and meeting with folks. And for guests or for those who are new and may not remember or don't know, the spirit of this is to go out, meet folks, hear from them, but also leave something in return, you know, whether it's our cards, links to, you know, QR code links, whether it's posting our information, I know, in the bathroom stall, and if someone needs help and finds themselves there and can have that kind of information more accessible to them, businesses, churches, other, you know, sites of community around Salem, and kind of, we're going to start downtown and maybe then choose where else to go, but in an intentional, methodical way, you know, going out and meeting folks. So,
yeah.
Kathy, anything else from the conversation?
Sorry.
Go ahead, Kate. I'm sorry.
One thing that I think is potentially missing from our previous conversation about safe spaces is potentially like conversation starters. So in there, it's like a section of what are we asking from the community just to put out materials, or like there's a couple of things, right? Stay in touch with us.
Yeah.
Or hand out our materials, or there's a few bullets, but we might even want to include a couple of questions that it's not us like doing a survey or a focus group, but if the opportunity arises and there's a conversation happening, it's just ideas for conversation starters. So going back to the safe spaces conversation, it's like, you know, what, I don't know, I was thinking about one earlier and I was like, oh, that'd be a great question to add. But it was around the safe spaces idea of like, you know, what do you define as a safe space? And then Salem, or like, what makes you feel like a space is inclusive or safe? So something along those lines, right, where we could include a couple of questions as well.
Yeah.
If anybody has any that you think would be a good, something that would keep a conversation going, or something that the community might bring up, or a business owner. And if you have any ideas, of course, send them to Gretchen or myself and we'll include them.
Thank you for that, Kate. And again, we will have time for folks to digest everything that's been shared, to mull it over, and to bring questions or comments either in writing or to our task force or to this group of folks. And there's no urgency other than this is the thing that maybe is, you know, the last thing that we have before going out. So I just have that, you know, top of mind. But thank you again for your efforts, Kate. I appreciate it very much. We all do. And I think that's it, Kelsey, from us.
I love it. Y'all have just been getting at it. I love it. Okay. Any questions or comments? Beautiful. Homelessness Informational Summit. I know Robert is not here. But Gretchen, is there anything?
I don't have anything on that. No update.
Okay. So moving on to the LGBTQIA+ Intersectional Rights Task Force. Our main thing that we talked about last meeting, that kind of aligns, because Kate came early to the community engagement and gave us some really great ideas. It's like similar things about that discrimination form. What does that look like? What can we do? So we are specifically looking at what barriers folks who identify as LGBTQIA or plus are experiencing in the desire to report experiences of discrimination or bias. And so we kind of comb through the belonging survey with some qualitative and quantitative data about where discrimination was happening and kind of what type of discrimination. And so we're going to discuss that. Maybe next meeting, we are identifying some community partners that we can work with to kind of maybe some training or some advertising / like awareness of this bias and discrimination that's happening in locations, but then also how to respond and then how to promote reporting options. So that's kind of what is developing with us. I guess some top places that discrimination was happening. No, gosh, I didn't have it pulled up. But I know. Oh, Gretchen.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Businesses, churches, government agencies, and healthcare settings. Also, and that was for gender identity. For sexual orientation, workplace and public transportation emerged on sexual orientation.
Awesome. Cool. Thank you for pulling that up. So we're going to look at community partners in those areas. There are some that are obvious, but I'm excited to kind of look at ones that are less obvious as well, and get that going. Any questions or comments? Okay, awesome. Equity asks and staff updates. Gretchen,
Thank you. Yeah, I've got a few things. We were talking at earlier meetings about the creation of an Oregon State Human Rights Commission. I wanted to update you that I was able to meet with a staff person from that, and I learned their premise is to safeguard and support the dignity and rights of people with intellectual or developmental disabilities. And they have a complaints line, kind of like we do when someone feels they've experienced some discrimination. So we agreed to stay in touch with each other. And I shared some information about a report about prevalence of people who are who report that they're developmentally delayed and also are experiencing homelessness, and shared some information with them about our experience in Salem on that. So it was a good introductory conversation, and I'm glad to be aware of them. Also, I just wanted to remind you, Lisa, back when you and Hamadi were at City Council, Councilor Stapleton had expressed interest and long story short, wanted to remind you that she's anticipating potentially being able to come next month to the March meetings. Just wanted to remind you of that. Councilor Stapleton is the president of the council, I think still, they just had elections, and is from Ward 1. So just to let you know of that probability. I also just wanted to make folks aware, in case you're interested, that City Council's holding a work session on February 20th that relates to homelessness. It'll receive a report that the city commissioned on taking a look at the work that's been going on. And it'll also include some talks from some different community partners. We'll have the Housing Authority, we'll have the Homeless Alliance, and some others there. So just wanted to make folks aware that's a public meeting should people want to attend, or it'll be broadcast on YouTube, just like our meetings are. So wanted to make you aware of that.
Did you say that was at the library?
Yeah, that'll be over at the Anderson rooms of the library. They like to do their work sessions there where they can sit around a table in a little bit different setting. Okay. So Anderson rooms at the Salem Public Library at 6 p.m. Okay. And then two more things. Thanks for bearing with me. Discussion about how we address when chairs of task forces change prompted me to realize that's not clear in our bylaws. And in a discussion with the city attorney, I wanted to propose that we bring forward an amendment to the bylaws to create a process for that. It really is kind of silent on that. So I thought I'd mention it this time and then maybe bring a draft to you all for discussion at an upcoming meeting, just to clarify how and when you rotate the chair of the subcommittees, if that sounds all right.
Well, if you wanted me out, we could have just.
Oh, no issues with either of our current chairs. But just realizing they asked, like, so am I on still? And I'm like, yeah, I don't know. Actually, it's a great question. It's not really clear. Okay, so we'll talk about that. Last thing is, I've been meaning to tell you for a little while now, the city launched something called the Equity Roundtable, which provides input from perspectives of underserved communities and city work. And it was launched by some folks in our community and planning department. And they're meeting every other month and bringing specific questions to the different groups and individuals around the table to get some specific input. So I thought it really connected well with some of our earlier equity asks and some of the interest that you all have here. So I wanted to tell you about it. And I'll send you a link. There's some information on the webpage that I'll send you so you can see more about it. But I thought it connected with the goals and objectives of the Human Rights Commission. So I wanted to make you aware of that. Relatively new. They've had a couple meetings and they generally are going to continue to go every other month.
I have a question.
Yes.
Can we just be a standing part of the meeting? What's the process?
I'd be happy to ask. I haven't asked.
Because I'm seeing everyone here.
Yeah, I know. It's a good team.
Except us.
It's a good team.
Basically.
It's a lot of groups like that. You explain. There's.
Oh, well, no, I mean, other than it's an opportunity to be involved in important conversations. Yeah. It's also an opportunity for us to be in community with everyone else.
Yeah.
What are you saying that you're saying everyone else?
Sure. The Oregon Marshallese Community Association, the Mid-Willamette Valley Community Action Agency, and lastly, Cross Culture Community Development Project, United Way, Willamette Valley, Micronesian Islander Community, Latinos Unidos Siempre, which is Luz, CareCorps, Salem for Refugees, Salem Kaiser NAACP, Northwest Humanity Services, Salem Kaiser Community Transition Program, Salem Capital Pride, Isaac's Room, Latino Business Alliance.
Kind of our people, huh?
And I could add to that because I sit on that team. And this-
Perfect. Thank you, Dr.
Yeah.
Brown.
No worries, Gretchen. And this is a team that we've been working with Eunice Kim, I would probably say for the past 3 years. Like it was right in the middle of COVID when we were talking about how to bring, different CBOs together to just talk about an equity lens, or how do we just find ways to get, communities who have been traditionally or historically forgotten, how do we bring them into the same space? And so it's been a long process in the making, but yes, we would definitely invite anyone from the Human Rights Commission that would like to be there, because it's a great place to network, but you also get an opportunity to hear how things are, shall we say, changing in the city, and how we are trying to address those changes, as we think about, the unsheltered population. So.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. And I think you're actually on the
Oh yeah, that's a picture.
Yeah.
We're all looking at a picture of you. I printed out some pages from the website.
There you are.
That's
So-
funny.
I don't know if it would be you, Dr. Brown, or whomever, we'd love to find a way to be there in conversation with you all. That'd be wonderful. If folks are interested in that, I don't want to speak for the commission, of course.
Yeah, totally. I could do whatever you want. Like you can join me next month when we go, send me an email, whatever you would like to do. Definitely on board to support the commission. So.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. I think Gretchen, we'll take that offline.
Yeah. That concludes my staff report. Kelsey, thank
Okay.
you.
Great. Moving on to the community calendar. Hope.
All right, we have some events coming up, which is awesome because there's usually just like one. So on February 10th, from 12 to 1, the Willamette Valley Genealogical Society's monthly meeting is going to feature a presentation by the Oregon Black pioneers discussing how people of African descent have lived and worked in Oregon since before the founding of the earliest English-speaking settlements in the Americas. Talking about the erasure of Black history dating pre-like 20th century and the result of historic, legal, and social battles. So, their Oregon Black pioneers are going to attempt to correct the record by highlighting key individuals and events that characterize Oregon's unique and centuries-old Black history. It will be located at the Salem Public Library's Logs Auditorium, and it's free and open to the public. So that's coming up very soon. And then March 16th from 1 to 3, there will be the Cherry Blossom Day at the Capitol, celebrating spring, the blossoming cherry trees, and Japanese culture in our state. The event will be located at the Capitol Mall with booths, activities, and performances. It's also free and open to the public. And then, this summer, we have the World Beat Festival coming up at Riverfront Park from June 29th and 30th to celebrate the cultures of the world with performances, dancing, music, food, and fun for all. That's what we have. Yeah.
Awesome.
Kelsey,
Yes.
that reminds me, I got a call from World Beat that the tabling options are open. Do we want to do that again? Yeah.
The one thing that I would say is that it was a little bit awkward having all of the city materials, because we were only, the HRC, but there's, there's library and all, and that we weren't speaking on behalf of. So if it could be maybe set up so that when we're there, it's just the HRC and not all of the city stuff that would normally be there.
I think to do that, I'll have to explore, but we might have to commit to, well, let me explore that. I was gonna say we might have to commit to staffing the whole weekend, but maybe not. Maybe we can just agree when we're there, we have the table, and then when someone else is there, they have the table, and maybe the table can be a dynamic table.
Because people were asking questions, it's like, I have no idea.
We're also not city staff.
Yeah.
Which is also.
So that's weird.
Remember, but I think Kathy, I heard her say like, well, I'm not a city staff person. And maybe half a dozen times.
Yeah, this is weird. Yeah, copy that.
The only thing else I'd say is somewhere accessible.
Yeah, well, see, that's the access tracks
I use a
conversation.
wheelchair a lot of the time.
Yeah.
We were in the middle of the grass, which is fun, but a little hard.
Thank you. Good feedback. Good.
Yeah, the amount of people who love the library and came up to talk about the library, and I was like, yeah, the library is really great. I can't help you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. We should probably, I'll see if we can just agree when they're not there, the stuff goes away. You know, maybe in
Well-
fairness, if we're not there, our stuff can go away too.
Well, actually, and I think, I don't remember if it was the tent or the tablecloth, but it was very different, like City of Salem and I know that we
Yeah.
have, I think we have Human Rights Commission.
We do.
More specific, which would just be, because they were coming from afar to ask us totally,
Yeah,
not irrelevant questions, but irrelevant to what
Yeah.
we were there for.
yeah. Yeah, we probably just have to do some switching out
Yeah.
of the stuff. Or commit to the full table.
Well, just, let us know what they say
Okay,
about that.
yeah, I'll explore it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Cool. But for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, we split a table at Worldbeat last year because it's a fairly big commitment.
Mhm.
And what we did was a little bit of a lot of things at the table, so. But then for the city, so a number of city teams shared the table, so the Human Rights Commission, but also library, but different groups took different parts of the time. But yet all the stuff was there the whole time, so that's what this is about. Yeah. That's a great point.
Great.
Accessibility and stuff.
Well, it sounds like we want a table and we have some feedback. Great. Okay. Member remarks and announcements.
Question as a new member, new commissioner. How many open positions are there?
How many what?
Open positions are there on the board?
I believe there are 2 and potentially 3.
Okay. I was just curious. I was on our website the other day when I was writing the talking points and saw there are 15 commissioners, I believe, in total. And I was just wondering how many we had. So thank you.
You bet.
And then kind of separate, I know Gretchen and I have been somewhat talking about what's like the attendance requirement of commissioners, how many meetings can commissioner miss without communicating prior to their absence. So because we have a couple of commissioners who haven't shown up for a while and haven't communicated about their absences. So but TBD on that.
Yeah. So we've been trying to reach out and reach the folks we haven't seen in a while. And then once we can't reach them, there's a formal letter that goes out from the mayor's office that just explains, hey, hoping to hear from you. If we don't hear from you by such and such a date, we'll go ahead and reopen your position. So we're in that space a little bit. So we have 2 vacancies right now, and then potentially a 3rd, depending on the outcome of that. And the general rule of thumb in the bylaws is to please hit 75% attendance.
For general meetings.
For general meetings, yes. Yes,
And are there pending applications?
there are.
Do you know, so there
There are some
potentially
pending.
could be more
Yes.
commissioners if
Yes,
those positions were available.
that's correct. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, our next meeting is March 13th. I
Not
think
so
that
far away.
I know. Oh my gosh.
That's for.
Oh,
forever.
And I owe you an email on the idea of a potluck
Oh, yeah.
in March. I still need to go back. We didn't hear from everybody on the doodle scheduling or on the can you come or not. I have some that have let me know they can come, so I need to chase down folks we haven't heard from and then affirm that for you.
We should be Deb's going away party too. We gotta- So
She's
she can't come
got a
then.
conflict,
I
yeah.
know, so we gotta.
I
schedule
can
it.
provide food for
No,
my,
no, no.
for my going away party.
Absolutely not. Oh, that dip is dip, right?
So
It
Sadie,
was,
you
no,
know,
it was bacon wrapped chicken.
Bacon wrapped.
It's really good too.
You've had it?
I've had it.
See, now we have to have it.
She spends a lot of time making it.
Well,
And she made so much of it.
Oh my
Well, the other day,
Yeah.
she was like, well, Grant, I'll drop it off at your house and you can bake it. And I was like,
Yeah.
Yep.
what have you been? Anyways, we're getting off to it.
This is important stuff here.
True enough.
All righty.
This is Linnell. I don't want to crash a party, and I'm totally fine with a no, but I adore you guys and I love to cook.
Oh.
It's a good combination.
I love it. The rule is no talking business. That's the rule, remember, because yeah, that wouldn't be accessible to our broader community. So it would be a strict no business gets conducted gathering.
Well, we'd love to have you.
No business, only fun. All right.
We'll see what we can do here.
Okay, well, I hope everyone has a lovely evening. Gretchen, do you want Joaquin and I to stick around?
I'll leave that up to you guys.
Vice Chair?